Welcome to the Business of Hotels podcast, examining the issues mattering most to owners and investors. And now, your hosts, Gary and Glenn.
Gary, how's it shaking, man?
It is shaking. Well, thank you.
Yeah, listen, it is the fall. The weather is absolutely incredible here in New York City. How about that global warming?
What global warming?
Yeah.
Actually, it's a beautiful day today. Absolutely gorgeous outside, and fall is one of my favorite time of years.
Yeah, I think so too. Although May, I'm a big fan of May. I think May needs a better PR person because October gets a whole lot of good press.
It does, with all the holidays and different things in it. You know, we got pumpkins, we got candy corn, one of my favorites. But anyway.
Yeah, well, you know, we're headed into the holiday season here, and it's a time that makes me think about sharing a lot of good things, sharing great meals, sharing a lot of love between each other. But the big thing that we're sharing is the sharing economy right now. You like how I did that there?
I
Gary?
did like the way you did that. I was wondering where you were going with the pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns.
I know. I've been listening to a lot of Segway stuff. Maybe I should start a new podcast, Segways. You know,
don't you ride those?
Well, not me. I've been banned.
Okay.
Well, there was that unfortunate incident that one time. Not pleasant. I really don't want to talk about that. But thanks for opening up wounds.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I do want to talk about the sharing economy because I think, in my opinion, the sharing economy has not been taken seriously enough about the hospitality industry. I spent a lot of years going to shows, conferences, events around the country, around the world, and for a while there, the CEOs were just pretending it didn't existed, and I feel that was a colossal mistake.
You know, I agree with you, Glenn, 100%. You know, it's interesting about the sharing economy. If you look at really what's being shared,
right?
It's a room, it's lodging accommodations, if you would, in someone's home,
right?
And that's been around since the beginning of time.
Right. It's
nothing new.
Happened. No, it isn't new. But why do we think it's new?
Well, first of all, let's go back to the ignoring.
All right.
We ignore it because we've always ignored it.
Right.
You know, bed and breakfast was always.
That's a great point.
Right.
Yeah.
Bed and breakfast was always a competitor to the hotel business.
Right.
And if you think about it, the hotel business is part of a larger business or industry called the lodging industry.
Right.
And if we look at the lodging industry, it contains a hotel business. Mm-hmm. It contains bed and breakfasts. Mm-hmm. It contains camping.
Right.
Clamping, and every other thing that there is today. So we were one part of it, but we fortunately for our industry, we became the largest part.
Right.
And to us, the most important part.
Right.
And we kind of got a little cocky about it.
Boy.
And said, we don't really care about these other industries.
Right.
And then 2007, along comes Airbnb.
Who? I know. I'm not familiar with this company.
You don't read any trade articles.
I don't leave my house
because there's not a day that doesn't go by that there's not something published in one of our trade articles in our industry about Airbnb.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Gary.
And Airbnb coming out in 2007. You know, it's interesting. I'm sure you've heard the story. Everyone has. And it was two gentlemen that lived in San Francisco, sharing an apartment, couldn't make ends meet, big conference coming to town, decide to create a little website to sell their air mattresses in their loft along with a breakfast. And 10 years later, 11 years later, we have Airbnb, which is going to be, I think, going publicly traded for $40 billion or something valuation or some ridiculous
it's got
number.
a much higher valuation than Marriott, for example.
Unbelievable. So how did that happen and what's happening?
Yeah.
And I think that's the question, right? And a lot of things have happened over the last couple of years with legislation. I know New York City has really cracked down trying to stop what they call illegal hotels. And I think we're going to see next year because, from my understanding, Airbnb's inventory in New York has shrunk. So, and it's interesting because what we're seeing in this with the Airbnb and so forth is that they have definitely had an impact into our occupancy and into our sharing of our business.
Yeah,
into our business.
Yeah, totally. I'm a big believer that this upcycle that we've been in now for 108 months or whatever it's been so amazing that it's kind of obfuscated what is really happening with the sharing economy because the average hotelier is saying, "Oh, I'm breaking records." So they're not seeing that big chunk of the pie that they're probably missing out on because so many people are staying in the sharing economy. Does that make sense to you?
I don't know if I agree with that.
Oh, great. I love that. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Because if you think about, let's first of all go back to when Airbnb started.
Yep.
What did it accomplish? It accomplished offering consumers a place to stay when hotels were sold out. So it expanded the supply of rooms when it was needed. Okay, and then it contracted when it wasn't needed. So in other words, because this citywide conference was here, they put their air beds up on Airbnb and sold them. And let's just say they were the first one, and it was 2 beds. So now they took 2 customers that couldn't get accommodations in hotels. But meanwhile, after that conference left, they didn't sell the beds anymore, right? So therefore, the supply contracted. So if Airbnb's worked as it's supposed to work, okay, as it was intended to work, it could allow inventory to expand and contract as demand needs.
Theoretically, but the reason why I disagree with you disagreeing with me is because of that more sophisticated owner that's now all of a sudden creating inventory. I see different companies that, for example, that are renting out or buying lots of units in apartment buildings, and they are becoming those de facto illegal hotels that you were talking about, which artificially inflates the supply, and they're not going away when that big convention leaves town.
Agreed. But I think, it's a complicated equation all the way around, right? One of the things is, from a business traveler, they're not offering the amenities and they're not offering the consistency.
Absolutely.
I've talked to, I know myself, I've used Airbnb. It's very hit or miss.
That's right.
And I think what you're seeing is, when even New York City, it's a city that runs in the high 80s. Even with this influx of Airbnb over this last several years, it's still running in the high 80s.
Right.
Where we've gotten hurt is an ADR.
Right.
The rate's being sacrificed because what's happening is, because of the ability for the supply to expand and contract with Airbnb, we're not having the ability to compress on rates and drive rates when occupancies are compressed.
Right, and that's why I feel, to get back to my original point, that we're missing out on potential profits because of that. And we don't know how much we're really missing out on, but we are now, I guess, starting to see some of those depressed rates here.
And I would agree in rates we are, but it's not. We're not losing occupancy. And that's where I disagreed with you.
All right, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. Now, the whole thing with this, the sharing economy and Airbnb, I'm not going to go sleep on somebody's couch. Right? Even if I need to be at Comic-Con next July and there's no rooms around for 100 miles, I'm just not going to Comic-Con. That's just me. That's not a lot of people.
Comic-Con's here in the city today. Are you
leaving
leaving early to go?
Well, I didn't want to timestamp when we're recording this thing, Gary. What if we don't put the show out to 2025? Now he's ruined everything. All right, but anyway, Gary, my point is, people sometimes are forced into trying those Airbnb products because the city is sold out, as you so expertly said. Now, I have an experience that's just like that. I was attending an event in Boston. It was the Global Business Traveler Association meeting, and select service hotel that I wanted to stay at, and I'm being very careful not to say brands because I don't think it's fair. They were charging $450 a room for a room that is not worth $450. It was me and my video producer, so it's talking $900 a night for 3 nights, $2,700 plus with the taxes and the surcharges and the fees and all of that kind of stuff that the jurisdiction puts in. And I was able to get a 2-bedroom Airbnb space, conveniently located with a great living area, enough space for us to spread all of our machinery out and do all of our video editing and all of that kind of stuff. And I got to tell you, Gary, I liked it a lot. And it opened up the idea of, hey, I could spend less money and still get a product that I like from time to time, not as a practice for me. But that to me is the biggest sin of all, is that the hotel industry almost kicked me to go try it, and then I liked it, and now I'm willing to try it again, and I did the same exact thing for the same event in a different city.
It's funny.
Again,
funny you say that, because I had a very similar experience, where my family and I were going up to Penn State to see a football game. My daughter's an alumni, and we go every year to go see a game. And this year, when we called for hotel reservations, we were going with another family. We both needed 2 rooms. We needed a total of 4 rooms. It was $500, a select service hotel, $500 a night, 2-night minimum. So between the 2 families, we would have spent $4,000 to go to a football game. That's without tickets. So
better be a good game.
Quickly went on Airbnb. We found a house that we could all stay in.
Oh boy!
It had basically an outside entertainment area, like a deck, covered with a fire pit, TV outside, a bar outside. and it was literally a 10-minute walk to the stadium.
Oh my goodness.
So we could literally tailgate at the house, cook, eat, hang out, and then walk to the game and then come back and tailgate afterwards.
Sounds like a perfect scenario for
so
you.
actually, it was a better product than the hotel product and a less expensive product.
Well, it was better, Gary, I think, to you, because it follows in with the whole trend of you all want to hang out together.
Correct.
You don't want to be sequestered room to room.
So going
to room.
to my point is that there's a product and a time for Airbnb. There's a place for it. There's a place for that type of environment. And what was interesting, going back to my point about the supply expanding and contracting, we literally stayed in someone's house. I opened up the refrigerator. Their mayonnaise, their ketchup, their mustard, still there.
Yeah.
All their clothes are in their drawer. They literally moved out for the weekend to make a little extra money to allow people to live in their house.
That's weird.
It is weird
to me. Like the only Airbnbs I've ever stayed in, and I think that I would only consider staying in, unless.
So you're only going to stay in the hotels, in the ones that are illegal hotels. That's what you're telling me.
All right. Well, all right. So. Thanks for making me look like a criminal. I really appreciate that. All right. Well, this has been the investment podcast. See you guys later. All right, Gary. Now,
right?
Yeah. All right. Yeah, maybe so, but they're not illegal as far as me, the consumer, is concerned, because I was able to easily click a few buttons and go there. And as a consumer, I'm not really concerned, nor should I care. Now, I'll put on my other hat as a champion for the hotel industry, and I think that's a really bad thing. And I think that I totally understand where the AHLA and other organizations within the hospitality industry are really working hard to convince jurisdictions that it is a bad thing, like they're finding success here in New York City.
And it's interesting because, where does all this end?
Right.
Right. And if we look at, as I said earlier, that we're part of a bigger industry, we're part of the lodging industry. And if you look back at some other industries that have gone through this kind of expansion with technology, if you would, what has happened? If you look at the airline, if you look at that travel industry, for example, prior to air travel, people went cross country on trains.
Right.
Rail was huge, right? Matter of fact, cities like St. Louis were basically built and developed because of being kind of the midpoint and so forth. And
gateway to the West.
Gateway to the West, right? And then once air travel came about, it became a lot easier to travel cross country and so forth on a plane. And it didn't make trains go away, but what it did is it changed the use of trains.
Right.
People didn't use it for transportation across country anymore. Still use it regionally,
right,
commuting to work. Used it for transporting, a lot of cargo and things like that being transported on freight trains. So it changed the way trains were utilized. And I think we're seeing that in the hotel industry. How are hotels going to be utilized going forward? Is it going to be more of the sharing economy? Is it going to be more traditional hotels? And other industries that have also seen that same experience is, let's look at communication. Look at radio.
Right.
Radio was the means of getting all your information. Then TV came along.
Right.
Didn't make radio go away, but it changed it.
It definitely did. Yes, and I could say specifically, you turned on the radio and everyone sat around on a Sunday night and stared at the radio for radio dramas or radio variety shows and that sort of thing.
Correct.
And then once TV came and Uncle Milty was on every Sunday night on the television, all of a sudden you saw the rise of all types of news stations or other specialty types of stations.
Correct. It became more news, sports related, where
Right.
you can watch your sports. Listen to your sports team if you couldn't watch it. Became more of a vehicle in the car.
Right.
Is where you got entertained because you couldn't watch anything. Right. So I think our industry is somewhat changing. What's interesting is what's happening today of how the sharing economy and the hotel industry is kind of converging. And I think they're converging to become one.
Agreed.
And if you look at, you can go on Expedia today.
Right.
And if you search New York City, up will come hotels as well as the sharing economy. You'll be able to rent someone's room. So you're already seeing the availability of the product being joined together on sites like that.
Right, and you're seeing so much more awareness of different ways for people to stay, and that technology component is making it easier for folks to stay. I see it, for example, I do a lot of work in the service department industry, for example, where I host a video news channel called HereToStay.tv, and what I love about that industry is it's always been there, like we've been talking about, like that vacation rental. But now all of a sudden, because of technology, it's boom, it's in your face. You can have real-time bookability, and it changes the whole dynamic of the way people can stay.
It moved it, right? You always had that vacation rental in vacation destinations.
Right.
Right. Now you can, if you want to book a room in the sharing economy in New York City you can, or in Hoboken, New Jersey, or wherever it might be.
Right.
So it's made it more national and more nationwide. And I think when you talk about the servicing industry and so forth, you're seeing, these kind of quasi hotel brands pop up, such as Sonder.
Right.
Where they're servicing apartments and kind of trying to lump groups of taking 50 of 100 apartments in an apartment building.
Now that you mention that, Gary, that's the brand that I stayed at when I was at an event in August in San Diego. I had never heard of that particular company before. I booked it through the traditional Airbnb channel. Arrived all of a sudden, it was Sonder. I'd never heard of it. I learned about the company. Very interesting model and totally disruptive, and not something that I'm hearing discussed at all when we're at the major financial conferences.
But what's interesting, is it disruptive or is it just an expansion? And what I mean by that is how does Sonder necessarily differ from what Marriott's now doing with Tribute?
Okay, yes, I see exactly what you're saying, but I will also say that it is a little bit muddier because it falls in that sharing economy category, whether or not it deserves to be. Right.
Tribute, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Marriott has...
I'm going to pretend I am, even if I don't. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So Marriott has taken they acquired Starwood, and Starwood has a soft brand called Tribute.
Yep.
They've taken that brand and allow individuals with homes or condos to basically join that brand and be a part of the Tribute brand as a single room.
Okay, now this I actually was not aware of.
They're selling right now. They have over 300 units for sale throughout Europe and expanding. So this is their first foray into this market. I compare it to Autograph. Right. Marriott launched Autograph, first soft brand.
I think the first soft brand was a Ascend collection.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. Well, that's because they're your client. I get that. Hi, this is Gary Eisenberg with LWHA Hospitality Advisors, president of their asset management division, where we bridge the gap between hotel ownership and management. View us at our website at www.lwhospitalityadvisors.com. You can always email me at gary.eisenberg@lwhadvisors.com. Feel free to call me as well at 212-300-6684, extension 108. Look forward to speaking to you or receiving your emails.
But here's the thing, Gary. I just need my ego is so delicate that I really need to feel right all the time, even when I'm wrong.
Let me back up.
All right.
The first soft brand to be successful.
Okay. Now that's not nice, Gary. Not
just
nice.
kidding.
I know. They've done a great job.
They both did a great job.
Speaking.
I think the difference is where Choice had some challenges is they were trying to enter a level of the industry of a brand that they did not participate in already.
Right.
And that's been their challenge. I think Ascend is a great brand.
I agree.
Where Autograph, I think, was able to kind of grow a little faster and so forth because they were well known in that segment already.
Absolutely. And when you get, whatever Marriott does anything, it resonates in a much bigger way than any other company introducing something.
So I think when I look at Autograph, and now you have Unbound at Hyatt, and everyone else is launching. Everyone's launching a soft
Red
brand.
Roof just did the Red collection.
Correct.
They just announced that this fall.
Correct. So there's tons happening, and I think the same thing's going to happen now with the sharing economy. You're going to see all the other family of brands start launching these types of brands.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what's going to happen is it's going to fundamentally change, and I think this is where the industry is being smart. They're going to fundamentally change the sharing economy instead of the sharing economy fundamentally changing the hotel business.
Why do you feel that way?
Well, a couple of things. One, my understanding, the way the sharing economy works is it's all algorithm driven on their website, and hosts get ranked, and one of the biggest criteria for ranking a host to be up high on the food chain is response time. So now think of it: you're a mom and pop that owns an apartment in New York City that you're renting. You work all day. Someone sends you an email at 10 a.m. in the morning, and you don't respond till after dinner around 8 p.m. Meanwhile, they send Tribute, which is a Marriott brand, a response at 10 a.m., and they get a response at 10:05.
Right.
So those brands are going to be higher on the chain. And I think the other aspect of it, these brands that are now going to have sharing economy hotel brands, such as Tribute, will create standards and brand standards and be able to get points and have guest loyalty programs. So I think they're basically going to hotelize, if you would,
That's interesting that you say that, because I was talking just last night to a hotelier who's focused on digital marketing. And what they did is they thought it'd be a great idea strategically to turn on their inventory onto a sharing economy site. But because of that response thing, they were getting a lot of inquiries real quick, but the smaller sized hotels were unable to respond quick enough, so they had to turn off that channel so that they wouldn't be looked down upon by the the service provider.
So, but that's an easy fix, isn't it, Glenn? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just technology, and they have the technology. It's just changing the program in their system to deal with it. So I think that gets fixed easy, and I think we'll end up dominating the sharing industry as well as a hotel.
Well, I think that you're making a great point there, and I hope you're right. Of course, I don't have the tea leaves that I could accurately read the future, but fundamentally, why do you believe that's going to be the case? Because to me, I'm looking at it, I say, hey, all of these other people are now getting involved. The hotel industry is coming in late. Yeah, they're starting to buy up all of these other companies and stuff, but
I think the sharing economy is going to continue to grow and boom, and here's why. When you take filling a need, and by filling that need, you're adding entrepreneurs at the same time, I think is brilliant. You look at Uber and you look at Lyft and you look at all these the taxi cab type companies out there that have pretty much put taxi cab businesses out of business, with exception of New York, where they're trying to protect the value of the medallion, but that's a different issue.
That is insane what has happened there. I mean, for any of you who are listening that don't understand how medallions work, there's a set number of cabs that are allowed on the streets. And because of that, they went from being hardly worth anything to well over $1 million. And because of Uber, because of Lyft, because of all of these sharing economy services in the auto industry, it's dropped down to what, $400,000?
I think 250 is the latest.
Oh my God!
And now they've limited the number of Lyft and Uber drivers that can be in the city.
Well, they need to, because it's fundamentally destroyed the ability to get around here in Manhattan. It's always been difficult, but you have all of the cabs. Then all of a sudden you've got tens and tens of thousands more of people driving and Ubers and Lyfts flooding the streets. It really brought our city to gridlock.
It did. Well, that's a story for another day.
But I like that story. It's fun, and I actually felt confident sharing something with you, Gary. So, thanks for shutting me down.
You're welcome. So going back to it, I mean, we see these types of industries. We see, like we said, Uber come in, and I think the same thing is happening here, that we're creating entrepreneurs.
Right.
We're allowing people to come in and say, put their kind of flag on a room, and this is mine, and I'm a host. Mm-hmm. I believe in the future that hotels will not be limited to their bricks and mortar. And what I mean by that, think about going to a building where you could stay in the St. Regis room, you could stay in the Four Seasons room, you could stay in whichever room you wanted to. Because I think at some point in time, if you look at what's happening with Tribute already, let's say someone was to build a condominium today and sell condominiums to individuals and allowed Airbnb use. I buy this condominium and I decide I'm making it a Tribute. Now Hyatt comes along and has their sharing brand, whatever. Let's just call it Share.
Share.
Let's just call it Share. They make up a sharing brand, and they're going to call it Share.
Okay, cool.
Okay. My neighbor buys a condominium, and he's a Share brand. It's happening, right? So really, in that same building, I could be staying in a Marriott Tribute or a Hyatt Share.
Well, we're already seeing that being expressed in a different way in the hospitality industry, with the sharp rise of dual brands and now even triple brands in one single building. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense.
But it could be 1,000 brands.
Right. I get it. I mean, you get a 500 apartment building here in New York City, and theoretically you could have X% to all of these different companies, all depending on what each individual owner wants
You could have
to do.
500 different brands. I think we have at least that now, don't we?
I'm pretty sure that there were about 500 brands introduced since we started this podcast today.
Very good.
Yeah. So in the end, what do you make of all of this as somebody that's focused on the investment community and the business of hotels? Where are the opportunities? What are the worry points? How are you going to advise people to negotiate this new world?
I think, the American Hotel Lodging Associations do a great job of lobbying to get laws in place and things, and to continue to shut down illegal hotels, and even kind of the misleading advertising of OTAs and so forth. I think that needs to continue, and I think we need to continue on that front. On the other side, though, I think we're going to see the brands, expanding into the home sharing side. I think we'll see it's become institutionalized in the sense that we've got technology behind it, but it hasn't become necessarily institutionalized yet as how it's operated. And I think that's where the brands will come into place.
Oh, so that's interesting, because now what you're saying is, hey, I've got this one unit I want to rent. I'm not a strong operator. Let me partner with this XYZ company that'll give me a set of standards and operational tools and help me create my own business on a micro scale as opposed to a more macro scale of having 85, 125 rooms.
Exactly. And it kind of takes the condo hotel concept,
right,
which is still being launched from time to time, and it's been difficult. There hasn't been great success with it, although there's been some, but I mean, on a mass level, there hasn't. Right. But I think it takes that condo hotel and kind of expands on that, makes it on steroids almost. Because now it's not, you're not taking like a St. Regis and making it a condo hotel. You're taking an apartment building, making it condos and allowing hotel use.
I wonder how the hotel brands are going to handle inspection processes if they've got, the space room in one building and another building.
Well, it's going to be similar to soft brands. Mm-hmm. You're going to have certain you have certain requirements, but not necessarily standards, right?
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Anything else that you feel that we should be covering on this particular topic, Gary? Because I'm feeling pretty good about this one, but you seem to know a lot more about this, so school me, baby.
I think we kind of covered it all. I think, also one other last comment to bring is that what the brands bring to the home sharing environment that Airbnb doesn't bring today is a following of loyal customers as well.
Right.
The guest loyalty programs are, if you look back at a hotel brand 10, 20 years ago, when you bought into a brand as an owner, you were buying into the reservation system. Mm-hmm. It doesn't exist today. You're not buying into a reservation system. You're buying into a loyalty program today. The brands have already lost to some degree that battle on the reservation side. There's so much competition to get that booking. And that's what Airbnb is as well. And if you think about it, if we start entering this market as a brand like Tribute, it's going to get booked through those Airbnb type of sources. Now, the way we get the booking ourselves within the brand is this whole booking direct and loyalty. So it's the loyalty that's the draw today.
All right, but I'm starting to become concerned, and maybe this is worthy of an entire show of itself, but my biggest worry going future with this loyalty is that as a consumer, we are so part of 20, 30, 40 loyalty programs. At every facet of my life, I've got 5 or 6 different loyalty programs. At what point does loyalty just mean a card in my pocket and not me actually being loyal to a property or brand?
But see, okay, you bring up a really good point. I think this is a completely different
podcast,
so but I'm going to give you one comment to that. There's one thing that the brands control that the OTAs and Airbnb and all these other disruptors don't, and that's the guest experience.
Right.
So if you marry amenities and services and enhancements to that physical guest experience to loyalty, that's the winner.
And that's going to be a whole conversation on creating personalized stay at on a mass level and really drilling down to create individualized experiences for specific guests at specific reasons for their traveling. Definitely an idea for an entirely different show. So stick around and listen to our series as we continue to drop new episodes. Gary, how can we find you?
You can find me at gary.eisenberg at lwhadvisors.com. I'm the president of the LWHA Asset Management Services, where we third-party asset manage as well as provide an array of consulting advisory services. Give me a call. Love to talk to you.
Great. And I am, of course, at Traveling Glenn, wherever you can find your social media. And be sure to subscribe to our Sunday night newsletter. Text the word hotel to 66866. You'll get every episode of this series and all the other ones on the No Vacancy News Network. Guys, thanks for listening today.
Thank you, Glenn, and thank you, everyone, for listening.